Hello everybody. Today in this new session, we are going to discuss about the physiology of speech. So first, we should know the definition of speech and language. So speech is defined as the ability to express thoughts and feelings by articulate sounds, articulate sounds, whereas language is the method of communication. Language is the method of communication, either spoken or written, either spoken or in written form, by using words, by using words in a structured or conventional way, in a structured or conventional way. So again, speech is defined as the ability to express thoughts and feelings by articulate sound, and language is the method of communication, either spoken or in written form, by using words in a structured or conventional way. Now, let's talk about the speech processing, how this speech is actually formed and it will deliver. First, sensory input in the form of visual or auditory or both will reach into our central nervous system. So first, sensory input will reach in our central nervous system, either in form of vision or auditory information or both. They will reach into the central nervous system, and in the visual cortex and the auditory cortex, they will first analyzed and recognized. So first it will reach into the auditory and visual cortex, where it will analysis and recognition will be done in the auditory and visual cortex. Then it sent its signal for comprehension or understanding purpose. Then it sends signal for comprehension or understanding purpose. So comprehension or understanding, it will send its signal. And then it will conduct, or it will flow through the passage. Conduction will occur, followed by it will reach at the speech programming area. It will reach at the speech programming area. Programming area. From there, it sends its signal for execution to the primary motor cortex. So signal to primary motor cortex, which is located at the Broadband area number 4, receive this signal, and from there it will, in one half, it will send for execution, or and also it can send its signal to the basal ganglia for further planning and programming of this speech, and also it send its signal to the cerebellum for the correction if it will need. So they have vice versa relationship with the primary motor cortex, and subsequently when it will, from the primary motor cortex, send its signal for execution via the cortico-bulbar tract or the cortico-nuclear tract. These are the upper motor neuron. So these are the upper motor neuron. Send its signal to the muscle for the articulation and phonation. So final articulation, first phonation will occur, phonation, and then articulation of that speech. Articulation will occur. Now, cerebellum can also control the phonation and articulation site to check the difference between the desired and actual program, to check the process between the desired process and the actual movement or speech processing program. So this is all about the speech processing. Again, first, sensory input either via the visual or by the auditory process or both send its signal to the central nervous system, where by the visual and the auditory cortex the signal will be analyzed and recognized. Then it will send its signal for the comprehension and the understanding site. The site is known as the Wernicke's area. Wernicke's area. And its area number is 22. So Wernicke's area is the area number 22. From there, it can send its signal via the arcuate fasciculus. Arcuate fasciculus, which are the bundle of axon, and ultimately it will reach at the speech programming area, which is also known as Broca's area. Broca's area, and its area, Broadband area number 44, exactly the double from the Wernicke's area. Now, after getting this signal, Broca's area send its signal to the primary motor cortex, which is the Broadband area 4. Primary motor cortex, in one hand, the received signal sent to the basal ganglia for further planning and programming of this speech program, speech processing, and also to the cerebellum for if any correction is required, it will be corrected by the cerebellum, and they send its signal back to the primary motor cortex, from where the descending corticospinal tract, which is known as here corticonuclear tract, and the corticobulbar tract, which is the upper motor neuron, will be generated. And eventually from the corticonuclear tract and the corticobulbar tract, it will end at the level of the pons and medulla. From there, the nuclei final common pathway will send its signal for phonation or sound making, and finally the articulation, the actual speech will come out from the mouth by the process of articulation. And also cerebellum has a role to check between the desired speech and the actual speech. So this is overall the speech processing method. Next, we shall talk about several areas and location of this speech and try to understand this thing in an illustrated diagram or in a schematic diagram form. Then first we have to start with the apparatus of the speech. What are the apparatus? Speech apparatus. So speech apparatus can broadly be divided into two. One is the central speech apparatus and one is the peripheral speech apparatus. Peripheral speech apparatus. Central speech apparatus are they are the Broca's areas, they are the articulate fasciculus, they are the Wernicke's area, and also the primary motor cortex, then the corticonuclear fiber or the corticobulbar tract, as well as basal ganglia and cerebellum. So these are all come into the central speech apparatus. What are the peripheral speech apparatus? Peripheral speech apparatus will start from the pharynx, larynx, then vocal cords, vibration of these vocal cords will produce the phonation, then muscle of articulation like the soft palate, then tongue, then lips, like that. So these are all about our speech apparatus. Again, to recapitulate the Brodmann areas, Broca's area is the Brodmann area number 44. Wernicke's area is the Brodmann area number 22. Primary motor cortex is the Brodmann area number 4. Now, in the pons and medulla, there are several nuclei. So, if we draw this diagram here, try to understand the location of this nuclei, cranial nerve nuclei basically. So, this is of course the midbrain. This is the pons and this is the medulla, and of course it is the spinal cord. No fun in telling that. So here in the pons we have 7th cranial nerve nuclei. So 7th cranial nerve nuclei is present at the pons. In the medulla at the midline we have 12th cranial nerve nuclei. So this is our 12th cranial nerve nuclei. In the medulla there are other 3 nuclei like 9, 10 and 11. So 9, 10, 9, 10 and 11. So again, this is 9, this is the 10th, and this one is the 11th. So from there the final common pathway will be generated. Like what? 7th cranial nerve nuclei, it sent, that is the facial nerve nuclei, it sent its signal to control the movement of the lips mainly. 9th cranial nerve nuclei, which is also known as glossopharyngeal nerve. So glossopharyngeal nerve nuclei which send its signal to control the movement of pharynx as well as the soft palate. Now, this larynx and vocal cord and also the soft palate will be under control of the 10th cranial nerve, which is also known as the vagus nerve, wandering nerve. So 10th cranial nerve supply its signal to the larynx, to the vocal cord, and also to the pharynx, and also the soft palate will get the signal, and remaining the 11th and 12th cranial nerve. 11th cranial nerve nuclei is known as the accessory nerve nuclei. It has two parts. One is the spinal accessory, one is the cranial accessory. Here, the cranial accessory part is coming into action and it sends its signal to the soft palate mainly. And finally, our 12th cranial nerve nuclei. This 12th cranial nerve nuclei send its signal directly to the tongue. So by which our all peripheral apparatus or the muscle of articulation will be controlled by this cranial nerve nuclei. And over and above all these pathways are computed and corrected by whom? It is our cerebellum. So cerebellum brother is there, which actually control the and also compute and correct the between the desired process and the actual process, and finally the articulation will be possible. So let's try to understand all these things in a schematic diagram. So suppose it is our central nervous system. Here it is the anterior part and here it is the posterior part. Okay. Next we have here the subcortical zone is the basal ganglia. Then we have of course our thalamus, and from the subthalamic zone the brainstem will start descending down, and here it is midbrain, then pons, then medulla, and of course the spinal cord. Okay, and of course we have here the cerebellum. Now try to figure out this all these things in a facial manner so that we can understand it more. So it is the overall peripheral site, and here it is our eyes, then nose, then lips and tongue and the chin. Here it is our beautiful eyes, though it is not looking beautiful, I know that, but still for understanding purpose this is the sufficient diagram. And here it is our pharynx, here it is our larynx, and then the trachea, and here of course our it is vocal cord, and this is of course our soft palate, this is tongue. Now try to label all these sides so that it will be more understandable. This is the frontal lobe, this is the parietal lobe, this is the occipital lobe, and this is the temporal lobe. Okay, here it is the cerebellum, here it is the basal ganglia hour, here it is the thalamus, from here it is the midbrain, pons and the medulla. So by this way we can make these structures, and here it is our soft palate, it is the lips of course, it is the tongue, and this is the vocal cord, this is the pharynx, and this is the larynx. So, and where the nuclei are situated here in this diagram, here it is the 7th cranial nerve nuclei, here is the 7th cranial nerve nuclei, here is the our 12th cranial nerve nuclei, 9th cranial nerve nuclei, 10th cranial nerve nuclei, and 11th cranial nerve nuclei. So in the brain area, try to understand the sulcus. So this is the central sulcus. This is known as central sulcus. In front of this, there is the precentral gyrus, and behind it is the postcentral gyrus. So this is known as the precentral gyrus. It is the post-central gyrus, where mainly the somatosensory areas are situated. These areas are mainly 3, 1, and 2 broadband areas, which actually receive all the sensory signal from the peripheral side into the central nervous system. And in the precentral gyrus, we have mainly the primary motor cortex. So primary motor cortex, from where the execution pathway will be generated, this is the site, and this area is the area number 4. Now here is our primary visual cortex, then association area of the vision, this is for analysis, and finally this is for recognition site. And then we have the angular gyrus and somasthetic sensation site. So let's try to label their number. This is the area number 17, primary visual cortex. Then this is the area number 18. This is the area number 19. Area number 18 is there for analysis purpose, and for recognition purpose, this is the area number 19. Together 18 and 19 is known as the visual association area. So visual association cortex, we can say it is the primary visual cortex, area number 17. Now here, these are the two sites. They are mainly named as, this is the area number 39, and this is known as the angular gyrus. So this is known as the angular gyrus, and this is the site known as the area number 40, higher association area for somasthetic sensation. So somasthetic sensation is the site where you can understand or recognize the object only by touching. So this is the somasthetic sensation area. Now come to the temporal lobe. In the temporal lobe, we know there is auditory area. So what are those auditory area? Let's try to understand this in a diagram. So here it is the temporal sulcus. This is known as the temporal sulcus. Above is the superior temporal gyrus, below is the inferior temporal gyrus. And also we have here the auditory cortex. So what are those auditory cortex here? It is the primary auditory cortex, area number 41 and 42. Here it is the auditory association cortex. So this is the auditory association cortex, and this area is known for primary auditory cortex. This is the area number 41, 42. Here it is the auditory association cortex is the area number 21 and 22. Here is the primary motor cortex. It is the area number 4. Now, after having this idea or locate all this accessory central apparatus of the speech, let's try to understand the main central apparatus of the speech processing. So what are those? These are like, here it is the Wernicke's area. Area number what? Area number 22. So this is the area for Wernicke's area, or this is the area for comprehension as well as the understanding of the auditory or the visual or both the input. From there, the bundle of axon will traverse and it will end up in the particular area which is known as the Broca's area. So this is the Broca's area, area number 44, exactly the double from the Wernicke's area. So this is our Broca's area. And here, of course, it is what? It is the bundle of axon. This is the articulate fasciculus. So Wernicke's area is responsible for comprehension or understanding. Articulate fasciculus are the area or the bundle of axon by which conduction will be possible. So repetition or the conduction will be done by this articulate fasciculus. And of course, the Broca's area is the speech programming area. So typical or the normal grammatical or the meaningful sentence will be produced or will be formed or will be structured in this Broca's area. Now, where they are actually located, how you can define their location, that you need to understand. To understand the location of the Broca's area, we have to understand the frontal sulcus is present where. This is the frontal sulcus. So this is the frontal sulcus, and it is the superior frontal gyrus and it is the inferior frontal gyrus. So this area is the inferior frontal gyrus. So this area is the inferior frontal gyrus. Now, by which you can locate the Broca's area. So Broca's area is situated in the frontal lobe and typically in the posterior part of the inferior frontal gyrus. So again, this Broca's area is situated in the frontal lobe, particularly at the posterior part. So this is the anterior part and this is the posterior part. So in the posterior part of the inferior frontal gyrus and also in front of the primary motor cortex, this Broca's area is situated. Now come to the Wernicke's area. Where this Wernicke's area is exactly situated? Wernicke's area is situated in the temporal lobe, in the posterior side of the temporal sulcus, or you can say posterior side of the superior temporal gyrus, because this area is the superior temporal gyrus. This is the superior temporal gyrus and this is the posterior part. So at the temporal lobe, particularly at the posterior side of the superior temporal gyrus, this Wernicke's area is situated. So this are all about our central and peripheral apparatus. Now in the lower side, the corticospinal tract, or you can say the corticonuclear tract and the corticobulbar tract, are generated from the primary motor cortex, and it will send its signal first to the cerebellum to check, and also to the basal ganglia, and finally the execution process will be coming down from this primary cortex after receiving their feedback from the basal ganglia and cerebellum into the cranial nerve nuclei. So this is up to the seventh nerve nuclei. This part is known as the corticonuclear tract, and from the central nervous system of the area number 4, the tract which is generating and descending down into the medulla in the bulb is known as the corticobulbar tract. So this green is the corticobulbar tract. Why corticobulbar tract? Because it is reach up to the bulb of the medulla, and where our 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th cranial nerves are situated. And from there, if it is the 9th cranial nerve, then it is the known as the glossopharyngeal nerve. It is the 12th cranial nerve. It is the 11th cranial nerve, and of course it is the 10th cranial nerve. Now what happens? This corticobulbar tract will send its signal to the muscle of articulation. So what are those, or how this tract is actually reach into these sites? Let's draw this thing in this diagram. From the 7th cranial nerve nuclei, it sends its signal to the lips. That means lips are under control of the 7th cranial nerve nuclei. Now, the 9th cranial nerve nuclei, which is also known as the glossopharyngeal nerve nuclei, it sends its signal to which area? 9th cranial nerve nuclei will send its signal to the pharynx and also to the soft palate. 10th cranial nerve nuclei, which is also known as the vagus nerve, or you can say the wandering nerve. This 10th cranial nerve nuclei will send its signal not only the soft palate and the pharynx, but also to the vocal cords and the larynx. And finally, our 11th cranial nerve nuclei, which is also known as the accessory nerve nuclei. And this accessory nerve nuclei, basically, which part here activated? It is the cranial part. So cranial part of accessory cranial nerve nuclei will send its signal directly to the soft palate. And finally, the 12th cranial nerve nuclei. 12th cranial nerve nuclei is also known as the hypoglossal nerve nuclei. It sends its signal to which site? It sends its signal directly into the tongue. So they are actually control the movement of this, or they actually contract the muscles of the articulation, and all this thing will be computed and corrected, and final execution of the speech will be under control of this cerebellum. So cerebellum is actually computed and correct between the desired speech and the actual speech process. So these are all about our speech apparatus and how they actually perform. So again, in the previous video, as we can see, the sensory input, this can be either vision or can be auditory or both. They will send its signal to the central nervous system, mainly in which sides? They are basically the visual cortex and the auditory cortex. They receive its signal. From there, it will send its signal for the analysis and the recognition in the visual association area and the auditory association area. From there, they send its signal for comprehension and understanding at this very Wernicke's area, which is the Brodmann area number 22. From there, through the arcuate fasciculus, the signal will be conducted through the bundle of axon and reach into the Broca's area, which is the speech processing area or speech programming area, or where the grammatical meaningful sentence will be generated. And furthermore, this ultimate signal will send to the primary motor cortex, where from our execution pathway will be generated. So before the execution pathway will be generated, the primary motor cortex will send its signal first to the basal ganglia and the cerebellum for further planning and programming, or if any correction will be required at all. And after getting their feedback, the final execution process will be done by the corticonuclear tract and the corticobulbar tract, which are the upper motor neuron. And from there, the lower motor neuron will be started, and it will reach up to the apparatus for phonation like the vocal cords and the larynx, and the muscle of articulations like the pharynx, soft palate, lips, and tongue, which are under control and computed and corrected by the cerebellum. So this is all about our speech processing method. And here, to summarize this thing, this is the frontal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe, temporal lobe. We have 4 lobes, and here the main speech apparatus is located at the Wernicke's side, Wernicke's area, area number 22. Then we have the Broca's area, area number 44, and between these two structures there is connection made by the arcuate fasciculus, which are the bundle of collection of axon or bundle of axon, and they will send its signal descending downwards. Now, another important thing here is the arterial supply of these very other lobes. What are the arterial supply of the central nervous system? That is also required to make your understand clear here. So what are the arterial supply? Again, this is the frontal lobe, this is the parietal lobe, this is the occipital lobe, and this is the temporal lobe. What are the main arteries that are supplying these 4 lobes? We have, one is the anterior cerebral artery, then the middle cerebral artery, then posterior cerebral artery. Middle cerebral artery has 2 branches. One is the superior branch, one is the inferior branch. Now, this anterior cerebral artery supply which part? It mainly supply the parietal lobe as well as to some extent the frontal lobe. So anterior cerebral artery supplying the parietal lobe and to some extent the frontal lobe. Middle cerebral artery mainly supply to the frontal area as well as to some extent the parietal lobe. Okay, and here we have important structures. These are the Wernicke's area, this is the Broca's area, and this is the arcuate fasciculus. So from here you can understand the Wernicke's area is basically getting blood supply from the superior branch of the middle cerebral artery. So this superior branch of the middle cerebral artery will supply to the Wernicke's area, and the inferior branch of the middle cerebral artery, it is the superior, and inferior branch will make its connection or send its blood supply to the Broca's area. So this is the inferior. It has clinical importance. Okay, and what about our posterior cerebral artery? This posterior cerebral artery send its blood supply to the rest of the side, that is the temporal lobe and the occipital lobe. So again, our anterior cerebral artery supply the parietal lobe and the frontal lobe. Middle cerebral artery supply blood to the frontal lobe mainly, and to some extent the parietal side. And it has two branches. One is superior and inferior. Superior branch supplies the Wernicke's area. Inferior branch supplies the Broca's area. It has clinical importance. And posterior cerebral artery supply blood to the, this is the area for phonation. So any difficulty in production of sound is known as the dysphonia. Difficulty in sound production is known as the phonation, dysphonia. So production of sound is known as phonation, and dysphonia is the difficulty in the production of sound. So any listen, if it is there in this part, that is the vocal cord, larynx, or in the trachea, or the nerve supply that are under control of this, they are which are control these muscles. If there is any lesion, then dysphonia can be occurred. So dysphonia can be due to psychological cause, like the in case of fear psychosis. Sometimes due to fear we cannot produce sound, so fear psychosis, this is known as fear psychosis. So fear psychosis will also lead to dysphonia, as well as if there is any neurological lesion in the lower motor neuron part, neurological lesion, then also the sound cannot be produced. Or if there is any muscular problem, if laryngeal muscles will be paralyzed in case of myopathy, so muscular problem will also lead to the dysphonia. Okay, next move on to the next disorder. This is the dysarthria. Difficulty in the articulation. So difficulty in articulation is known as the dysarthria. What are those and how they will produce? As in our previous diagram, we have seen that the midbrain, pons, and medulla, spinal cord, and of course this is the cerebellum. They will control. There is the 7th cranial nerve nuclei. Here is the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th cranial nerve nuclei. 7th cranial nerve nuclei control the movement of the lips. 9th cranial nerve nuclei control the movement of soft palate and the pharynx. Then 10th cranial nerve nuclei control the soft palate, pharynx, as well as larynx and the vocal cords. And 11th cranial nerve nuclei control the soft palate, and 12th cranial nerve nuclei control the tongue movement. Here it is the cerebellum, and all this movement is under computed. This movement are computed and corrected by the cerebellum. So what are the different cause for the dysarthria? Where articulation cannot be produced. That means you can form the speech, or you can planning, programming the speech or the desired language, but you cannot finally utter. So there is the problem in the articulation. So if there is any cerebellar lesion, there will be no coordination of the sounds that are produced from the lower half, from the vocal cords, vibration of the vocal cords and the larynx. The phonation will produce, they are not proper articulate. So in case of cerebellar lesion, the sound will produce is known as the scanning speech. Scanning speech is the term for the cerebellar lesion. If there is cerebellar lesion, Now, if there is any bulbar lesion, that means in case of medulla, where the 9th to 12th cranial nerve nuclei are present, and if these cranial nerve nuclei are damaged due to any reason, due to trauma or tumor or less blood supply, so this is known as the bulbar palsy. Bulb is known, it's present in the medulla, so from there it is the bulbar palsy. No difficulty to remember this thing if you correlate with the diagram. So bulbar palsy, if it is there, then there will be dysarthria. Or if there is upper motor neuron type lesion, this is the lower motor neuron type lesion, lower motor neuron lesion. If there is upper motor neuron type lesion, that means if there is lesion in the corticonuclear tract or the corticobulbar tract, due to mainly due to the demyelinating disorder. So demyelination, if it is occur in case of, most commonly in case of multiple sclerosis. So in case of multiple sclerosis, or in case of Guillain-Barré syndrome or Guillain-Barré syndrome, whatever you can say, this upper motor neuron lesion will produce, and that will lead to dysarthria. If there is any neuromuscular disorder occur, if any neuromuscular disorder, if it is there, then this dysarthria will be produced. Typically, it can be seen in case of myasthenia gravis. And finally, if there is muscle weakness, or in case of myopathies will also lead to dysarthria. So these are overall causes of dysarthria. One important point you have to remember, that both in case of Parkinson disorder, as well as in case of Guillain-Barré syndrome or the Guillain-Barré syndrome, you can get both dysphonia as well as the dysarthria. So this is the take-home message for your clinical aspect. So in case of Parkinson disorder and the Guillain-Barré syndrome or the Guillain-Barré syndrome, you will get both dysphonia and dysarthria. Next, the important speech disorder is known as the dysphagia or aphasia. So aphasia or the dysphagia. So what is that? It is an important language disorder that affect a person's ability to communicate both verbal and or emotionally. So there is difficulty to communicate with the other population both verbally and or emotionally. So there is difficulty to in communication to other population or other people, both verbally as well as emotionally. So this is known as the aphasia or the dysphagia. Now, what are the different types of dysphagia that we need to know? First is the Broca's aphasia. So before we are going in detail in the aphasia, we have to understand the gross functions of the three main sites. These are the Wernicke's area, one is the arcuate fasciculus, and third one is the Broca's area. So what is the main function of the Wernicke's area? Up to now, you can understand this Wernicke's area is for comprehension. After analysis and interpretation, this Wernicke's area can understand the signal, comprehensive ability. So comprehension or the understanding are basically done by this Wernicke's area. And also it is our mental dictionary. where the words will be stored and they are actually found with our previous memory. Now, arcuate fasciculus, the main function is the conduction or the repetition. So conduction or the repetition of that sound that will transmit from the Wernicke's area will be done by the arcuate fasciculus. And the Broca's area, it is for the formation of the meaningful or grammatical speech or language. So meaningful grammatically correct language formation. So overall, this is the fluency area. We can, in a single word, if you want to try to describe this Broca's area, this is for the fluency of speech. Fluency of speech, or you can say this area is for someone's expression. So expressive area. Expression can be done by this Broca's area. So from now on, whenever we will discuss about the different types of aphasia, we will just mention that comprehension will be preserved or impaired. Here repetition will be preserved or impaired, and the fluency or expression is preserved or impaired. By this way, you have to understand or correlate the different types of aphasia and try to locate the site of lesion. So with having this note, let's start with the Broca's aphasia. So Broca's aphasia, which is also known as anterior aphasia, expressive aphasia. This is expression disorder. So expressive aphasia, or you can say this is the mute aphasia or fluent, non-fluent aphasia. Mute aphasia, or you can say this is non-fluent aphasia because fluency disorder is there. So non-fluent aphasia. Non-fluent aphasia. So how it is look like? Here is your Wernicke's area. Here it is your central sulcus. Here it is your frontal sulcus, inferior frontal gyrus, posterior segment of the inferior frontal gyrus. This is the Broca's area, and this is of course the arcuate fasciculus. So here the lesion is mainly occur in this area number 44, and also to some extent the anterior part of the arcuate fasciculus. Both these sides will be paralyzed, and as a result of this, meaningful grammatically correct sentence will not be produced. So here the comprehension and repetition will be preserved, but there will be difficulty in fluency. Fluency and expression will be impaired. So meaningful grammatically correct sentence will not be formed by this lesion. So this is all about our Broca's area. Next, go to the next aphasia, that is the Wernicke's aphasia. So second is the Wernicke's aphasia. Wernicke's aphasia. So what is the Wernicke's aphasia? Other names of Wernicke's aphasia is the posterior aphasia because it is present posteriorly to the central nervous system. So posterior aphasia, or it is the other name of the Wernicke's aphasia is the receptive aphasia. Previously it was the, in Broca's aphasia it was the expressive aphasia. Here it is the receptive aphasia. Receptive aphasia. Other name is the Jagron speech or neologism. Jagron speech. Jagron speech or the neologism. This is the sound, or this is the articulation which can be seen in case of Wernicke's aphasia patient. So this is the Wernicke's aphasia. Now the site of location or site of the lesion is that exactly at the Wernicke's area and in the posterior part of the arcuate fasciculus. So it will be lesion is present in the Wernicke's area and the posterior part of the arcuate fasciculus. So here the fluency is maintained. That's why it is known as the fluent aphasia. So fluency is preserved. Repetition to some extent is preserved. Main problem is that in the comprehension. So cannot understand or comprehend the signal by which no structured sentence will be produced, or a haphazard sound will be produced which has no meaning. That means he cannot understand what other people tell, or other people also cannot understand what this Wernicke's aphasia patient will try to say. So comprehension difficulty is there. So this is all about our Wernicke's aphasia. Third one is the conduction aphasia. So conduction aphasia, what is that? It is the pure repetition disorder. Pure repetition disorder mainly. So cannot conduct the sound from the Wernicke's area and the Broca's area. So it is the pure conduction defect or pure repetition defect. And lesion is at the arcuate fasciculus. So lesion is at the arcuate fasciculus. Okay. Now next important disorder is the transcortical motor aphasia, or also known as the commissural aphasia. Transcortical motor aphasia, which is also known as commissural aphasia. Commissural aphasia. What is that? Here, what will be the problem? This is the Wernicke's area, this is the Broca's area, this is the arcuate fasciculus. Here the lesion occur at the anterior part of the cerebral cortex in front of the Broca's site. So anterior part of the cerebral cortex or in front of the Broca's area, this transcortical motor aphasia will be present. So this lesion will lead to difficulty in expression. So expression will be impaired. So expression ability will be impaired in case of transcortical motor aphasia, which is also known as commissural aphasia. Okay. Next, come to the next aphasia, that is the transcortical sensory aphasia. So transcortical sensory aphasia. It is the number 5. So transcortical sensory aphasia, where is the lesion exactly occur? This is the Wernicke's area, this is the Broca's area, this is the conduction or the arcuate fasciculus. Here the lesion exactly occur surrounding the posterior part of the Wernicke's area in the occipitotemporal lobe, and where mainly the comprehension will be impaired. So comprehension impairment can be seen. Impairment can be seen, but our repetition and fluency or expression ability will be the normal in normal limit. Next, go to the transcortical mixed aphasia. That is the transcortical mixed aphasia. Here, where the lesion will occur, here both the transcortical Broca's areas and transcortical Wernicke's areas. That means the both motor, transcortical, motor plus transcortical sensory aphasia will occur, and it is the one of the severe aphasia, and it is also known as isolation aphasia. So isolation aphasia, it is termed as isolation aphasia or transcortical mixed aphasia, which occur due to both lesion present in the surrounding part of the Broca's area in the frontal lobe and surrounding part of the Wernicke's area in the parieto-occipitotemporal lobe. So here both the expression and the comprehension ability can be impaired. Next aphasia is known as the anomic aphasia. So anomic aphasia. It is also known as the nominal aphasia. Nominal aphasia. Okay, or also known as the amnesic aphasia. Amnesic aphasia. Here, mainly the lesion will occur in which part of the lobe, on which part of the central nervous system. Mainly lesion occur at the posterior most part of the Wernicke's area in the occipitotemporal zone. Here defect is most posterior part of the Wernicke's area, that is the naming area of left hemisphere. Difficulty in confrontation, naming, word finding and spelling, comprehension, repetition, fluency and articulation are all preserved. So here no problem in the articulation or repetition or the comprehension ability, but naming, the word finding will be impaired. Naming or the word finding will be the impaired. Suppose after seeing a bus, if he want to say that it is bus, instead of saying bus, he will utter some other words like it is a car, it is a flower, or it is a book, like that. So appropriate naming or appropriate word finding will be impaired in this case. And most typically they are the only clinical feature in case of early Alzheimer disease, early Alzheimer disease, in case of head trauma, or in case of metabolic encephalopathy. So many MCQs are coming from this zone, or in future the question can become on these three disease, which are the important one for this anomic aphasia or nominal aphasia or amnesic aphasia, or you can say in this type of diseases, this anomic aphasia is the only clinical presentation in the clinical setting. Next, go to the global aphasia. What is that? Global aphasia. So global aphasia means where the lesion or the infarction will occur in which artery? It is the middle cerebral artery, because the middle cerebral artery is the important artery which actually supply Inferior branch will supply the Broca's area. Superior branch will supply the Wernicke's area as well as the arcuate fasciculus. So if any infarction will occur in the middle cerebral artery infarction if it is there, then global aphasia will be produced, where repetition or the comprehension or the fluency all will be impaired. So this is all about our global aphasia. Next, come to the subcortical aphasia. Subcortical aphasia. Subcortical, that means below the lobes. Important structures are, one is the basal ganglia, one is the thalamus. So it can be anterior syndrome, or where basal ganglia lesion is there, mainly the caudate nucleus or the striatum. If there is lesion, then the subcortical aphasia will be produced like this. This is the structure, this is the basal ganglia, and this is the thalamus. So if lesion will occur in the basal ganglia, then it is known as the anterior syndrome subcortical aphasia. Anterior syndrome. Here, not only the Broca's-like aphasia will be produced, but also contralateral face and upper limb paresis will be there. And in case of thalamic aphasia, which is also known as the posterior syndrome, where Wernicke's type aphasia will be produced, along with there will be problem in the thought disorder. It is misdiagnosed as a psychotic disorder. Predominantly, it is a paraphagia will occur. So paraphagia will occur in this case. Paraphagia will occur in this case, and it most of the time it will be misdiagnosed as the psychotic disorder. That's the thing. So this is the subcortical aphasia. Next, go to the watershed aphasia. To understand this watershed aphasia, first we have to understand what is the watershed zone. So here it is the frontal, this is the parietal, this is the occipital, and this is the temporal. From our previous knowledge, we know that middle cerebral artery will give supply to the frontal area, to the parietal zone. Then anterior cerebral artery will give supply to the frontal side and the parietal side, and the posterior cerebral artery will give supply to the occipital zone and the temporal zone. So these are the sites of the arterial supply. Now suppose in this peripheral arterial sites, that means this zone where these peripheral arterial sites will match with each other, this area is known as the watershed area. Watershed area. So watershed area are nothing but the meeting point of these three major arteries. Meeting point, peripherally meeting points of three major arteries, like posterior cerebral artery, anterior cerebral artery, and the middle cerebral artery. Due to less amount of blood will reach in this watershed area, that's why this site is very much common to have the hypoperfusion, or in case of shock or in case of hypotensive situation, this area will get less amount of blood supply. So in case of shock or in case of hypotensive situation, this watershed zone will get less amount of blood. So hypoxemia will occur, and as a result of this, there will be the aphasia, or the difficulty in expression and thoughts will be generated. So hypoxemia or difficulty in the blood supply. Difficulty in the blood supply will occur in this watershed area, and as a result of this there will be watershed aphasia. Okay, so this is the watershed aphasia, where there will be peripheral portion of these three major arteries will get less amount of blood, and as a result of this there will be watershed area. So language problem will be there. There can be problem in the articulation, or there can be problem in the repetition and comprehension. So global aphasia type situation can be produced. Next, we should talk about the aprosodia or dysprosodia. Aprosodia or the dysprosodia. Prosody means variation in melody, intonation, pause, stress, intensity, vocal quality, and accent of speech. Again, prosody means variation in melody, intonation, pause, stress, intensity, vocal quality, and accent of speech. Dysprosodia refers to loss of normal rhythm or melody of speech. So dysprosodia means loss of normal rhythm or melody of speech. So this is known as dysprosodia, which may manifest as pseudo foreign accent syndrome, foreign accent syndrome. So this is about the dysprosodia. So pseudo foreign accent syndrome refers to a disorder in which one or more of the prosodic fluctuation are either compromised or eliminated. And this dysprosodia can be of two types. One is the expressive and one is the receptive. So it can be expressive dysprosodia, or it can be receptive dysprosodia. Expressive dysprosodia can be motor type, can't add emotionality to speech. So here in your own speech there will be no emotionality. So emotionality will be impaired in your own speech. And in the receptive type dysprosodia, which is the sensory type, here you, the patient, cannot understand the emotional part of other person's language. So if there is loss or can't defect in the detection of the emotionality in others communication, so if there is impairment in detection of emotionality in other speech. So again, to summarize, the dysprosodia means the loss of normal rhythm or melody of speech, and this is also known as pseudo foreign accent syndrome. It can be expressive type, it can be receptive type. Expressive type is that type of dysprosodia where you cannot add emotionality to your own speech, and receptive type of dysprosodia means you cannot detect the emotionality underlying in others communication. Now, what do you mean by dyslexia? What do you mean by dyslexia or semantic aphasia? Dyslexia will occur if there is lesion, particularly in the angular gyrus, which is the area number 39. Here, when analysis and interpretation of input signal will be disrupted. Analysis and interpretation of input signal will be disrupted. Written words can be seen but cannot choose appropriate word to answer and react to speech as if it were in an alien tongue. So the patient assume the language like an alien language. Okay. So the most commonly you can give the example of this dyslexia that were projected in a famous movie, that is the Tare Zameen Par, where the little child was suffering from this dyslexia problem, where analysis and interpretation of input signal was disrupted. So this is the dyslexia. Next, go to the Gerstmann syndrome. Next, go to the Gerstmann syndrome. Gerstmann syndrome. In this syndrome, there will be acalculia. One will be the acalculia. Cannot be able to calculate the common arithmetic problem. There can be dysgraphia. Dysgraphia means impairment in the writing. There can be finger anomia. Naming difficulty in different fingers, like index finger, middle finger, ring finger cannot utter. Or patient can have right or left confusion. Right-left confusion will be there. So this together is known as the Gerstmann syndrome. Lesion occur most typically in the angular gyrus in the parietal lobe. So here also lesion most typically occur in the angular gyrus in the parietal lobe. So this is all about our speech disorder. Hope you will understand more from this tutorial session. If you have any comment or suggestion, you can share with this video. Thank you.